Hello, I'm John Adams, editor of Digital Photo, and welcome to part 2 of our Photoshop masterclass all about curves. As you'll know from part 1, what we're doing is using curves to adjust contrast and colour balance selectively, so we can actually change the contrast and the colour in different parts of the image. We're going to start with a fairly drab and lifeless picture, this one here on the left, which you'll find on the CD. It's called hamburg.jpg. And what we're going to do is take that and turn it into something with a lot more punch and a lot more power. This one here on the right. To achieve this, we're going to use nothing but curves. That's the only palette we're going to use. So let's get started and see how we can make it all work. Right, we'll close down this one. Let's get rid of that. And we'll kick off with hamburg.jpg. Okay, well the first thing we need is our layers palette up on screen. So go to Window and choose Layers, or hit F7 on the keyboard, and your Layers palette will pop up. The first thing we're going to do is sort out our global contrast and colour. And to do that we need curves up on screen. So we just click on the adjustment layer icon at the foot of the Layers palette, and from the list choose Curves. There's our Curves palette, and now we're going to set a black point, so we have the shadow point of the entire image. To do this we click on the black eyedropper, and then we've got to find the darkest part of the image. Now I reckon it's probably going to be somewhere in this shadow under the boat, so click on that, and that's our black point set. Next we need our white point, so we click on the white point eyedropper in Curves, and the brightest highlight I think will be in that cloud there. So we just click on that, and we now have black and white points set. After that we'll do a little tweak to contrast. We're just going to bring down the quarter tones a touch, something like that. Then we'll boost the 3/4 tones so we get a nice subtle S-curve. We're not blowing any of the highlights, and we're not sort of crunching any of the shadows into complete oblivion. All we're doing is tweaking contrast so we get a better looking image overall. Maybe one point in the middle? Yeah, something like that should be good. Right, now that our contrast is set for the whole image, we need to warm the whole thing up because it's looking far too cold and far too blue. So to do this, we're going to use the individual channels in the Curves palette. So we click where it says RGB, and first of all select red. This is our red channel curve, and we're just going to push that up a little bit. You can see that warmth coming through. Don't go too far, don't do something like this so we end up with a completely pink toned image. Just a subtle tweak, a little push on the red, and that looks about right there. Little push up on the red should be good. Okay, once that's done we need to introduce a bit of yellow to mix with that red. So we click on the channel box, select blue because yellow is the opposite of blue, and we just need to pull down the curve just a little bit to get a touch of yellow in. That looks okay there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Just a subtle tweak to the blue channel, and we click OK. And there's our Curves adjustment layer. If you want, you can name these actual adjustment layers, so we can just double click where it says Curves 1, and we can call that Colour, for example. Now our first adjustment layer is complete, what we're going to do is create another one. And this time we're going to make a selection, and we're going to work on this key side area here. So pick up the freehand lasso tool, and you saw some of this in part 1. We just draw a rough line along the key side, something like that, all the way around the outside of the image, and back to our starting point. Once that's done, we need to soften the edge, so we go to Select and choose Feather, and for this image it's taken on a 10 megapixel camera, so around about 150 pixels should be fine. So set 150 as the feather radius, and then click OK. And remember, if you're using version CS3 of Photoshop, use the feather slider in the Select Refine Edge command. That's the one you want to use. Okay, we've made our selection. We can check the softness of this edge just by hitting Q quickly on the keyboard. And you can see there we've got a nice subtle blend running through from the selected area to the non-selected area. So that's looking good. All we need to do now is choose Curves again. So we pick another adjustment layer, click on Curves, and now we're going to make changes to this part of the image. And what we're going to do is darken this thing down. So we're just going to drag the curve down a touch. That's looking pretty good. Maybe add another point there just to smooth out the contrast. That looks okay. It's a subtle tweak, but that's what Curves involves. Don't go mad with curves. Keep your movements very small each time. Just subtle tweaks is all you need when using curves. Now that's done, we're just going to warm up a little bit more. So we'll go to red and just push that a little touch. There we go. And then we'll go to the blue channel and pull it just a tiny amount. That's looking pretty good there. Click OK, and we have our second adjustment layer. Here the white area is the key side, the part we've affected with the curves adjustment, and all the black area remains unaffected. But because it's an adjustment layer and it's above the one beneath it, it means that any changes we've made on this layer will be seen through the black area here. So you can keep on stacking adjustment layers up, one on top of the other, and you'll still see through what underlies the whole thing. And if you want to quickly check your progress and see how things are going, just switch on and off the eye icons and you can see the changes you're making. Switching those on and off will show you exactly where you're getting to with your image. Okay, well our next job is to work on this sky. So with the freehand lasso tool, we're just going to draw a rough ziggy-zaggy line around the sky here. Something like that should be fine. And of course we're going to feather that selection. Select feather by 150 pixels. Click OK. Check your blend with quick mask. That's looking good. And now we need to make a curves adjustment to that area. So we use our adjustment layer icon, choose curves, and we're going to drag this curve down just to beef up that area of sky. That's looking pretty good. I think we can... Yeah, that's nice. And that's making the sky much more dramatic, but we're losing some of the kind of bright blue colours that should be there. So we're now going to switch into the blue channel, and we're just going to push that up a bit. There, that's good, and that's just increased the blue tones in the sky and really helped out the weather. Click OK to that. Now I can see a problem. If we zoom in, let's just go into the cathedral spire, you can see that that's gone very dark. If we switch that adjustment layer on and off, you can see that the detail is there when it's switched off, but when we switch it on, we actually lose a lot of the detail. And that's because our curves adjustment layer has gone straight through the steeple and has sort of kind of blackened off the top part of it. So what we need to do is adjust this particular mask, and that's really easy. We can just do it with a paintbrush. So just click on the brush icon in the toolbox and you'll get a paintbrush. You need to adjust the size of the brush to suit the subject. And we can do this very quickly using the left hand and right hand square brackets keys. Right hand makes it bigger, left hand makes it smaller. Once you've done that, make sure black is selected as the foreground color. To do that quickly, just hit D on the keyboard and then X. Then we can just paint black into this area here to reveal stuff. Now, the opacity on my paintbrush here is set down quite low at 20%. Crank that up to 100 to start with, and then you may need to reduce it as you go. But if we paint black in there, you can see all that detail coming back. We need to reduce brush size as we move up the spire. We need to be fairly careful about this because we don't want any telltale halos appearing around the outside of the spire. That should do the job nicely. And you can see there in the mask, if we just make the palettes a little bit bigger, you can see in the mask there's our cathedral spire poking through in the mask itself. So that's done a pretty good job. Yep, I'm happy with that. We've now made sure that our curve adjustment layer doesn't affect the cathedral spire, it only affects the sky behind it. So we'll double click the hand tool to go back to normal size, and I'll just adjust those palettes to get them back down so you can see exactly what's going on. Okay, now that's done, we're going to work on these buildings because these are looking very bright and kind of unbalancing the image somewhat. They sort of feel brighter than the foreground itself. So we'll grab our freehand lasso and just make a rough selection around that patch of buildings there. There we go. Doesn't have to be too accurate. Again, we'll feather this selection. So go to Select, Feather, 150 will do nicely. Make a curves adjustment layer. And all we're going to do is darken that area down. Look at that, it's great, isn't it? So flexible using curves. Fabulous tool. There we go, we'll just darken that down. And I'm going to add a hint of red to that as well, just to warm it up a touch, just to get everything to balance. That's nice, that's enough. Just a subtle tweak on the red. Click OK. Now the same thing on this side, only these need to be brightened up a little bit, just to reduce the overall contrast and balance up the picture. So again, freehand lasso tool, we just go round these buildings here. I've gone over the edge of it there, but the feathering should take care of that. So select Feather, 150, click OK, and then we use another curves adjustment layer. And we're just going to brighten these, just punch them up a little bit. That looks good there. I'll just bring in the contrast a fraction as well, just moving the black point across, just to help out contrast in those buildings to avoid them looking washed out. That's good. Yep, that's nice. I think maybe a touch of red, or yeah, that looks good. Touch of red and maybe a touch of yellow or negative blue as well. Good, that's our buildings looking nice. Click OK, and you can see we're getting a very complicated looking layers palette from all this work, but we're making very simple adjustments and working through the image step by step, bit by bit, to really make things work well. Now it's all falling into place quite nicely, but I want to do a little bit more work at the top of this sky just to hem everything in. So again, freehand lasso tool, don't need anything more complex than that. We'll just go along the top strip here, and we'll give that a bit of feathering. Select and feather, 150 is fine. Curves adjustment layer, and we just want to darken that down a touch more. That's nice, that's really bringing those rich blues through at the top of the picture. Yep, that's pretty good. Does it need a tweak? Yeah, something like that's good. Lovely job, we'll click OK there. Now one issue is it's really gone over the top here at this right hand end. Because that was a little darker than the left hand side of the sky anyway, we need to actually hold back that effect a touch. But that's easy to do. We'll just go into the mask with a black paintbrush, pick up our paintbrush, get the right kind of brush size. Something like that should be okay. And we're just going to dab away and reduce. Look at that. We just reduce that effect there at the top right and blend it in. Lovely. You can see there, that's exactly what's happened in our mask. We've got the black area extending across the right, or the top right, of this particular part of the frame, so it's reduced the effect there and left it intact on the left hand side of the picture. And while we're doing that bit of masking, I might drop the sky down, or the adjustment to the sky down a little bit further. This was our curves adjustment layer for the rest of the sky. There it is. I'm just going to click on that, and all I'm going to do is go into the mask again with a white paintbrush this time. So I'm going to swap to white by pressing X on the keyboard. I'm just going to bring that down a little bit further. So I'm just painting white, there we go, and that's just giving us a bit more contrast in that part of the sky. I'm going to reduce the opacity down here to about sort of 35%, something like that. Reduce brush size and just dab away at that area of the sky just to bring a bit more detail through. That's good. That's done the trick nicely. And you can see that our mask has been adjusted in accordance with what we've just done. Great stuff. So we go back to the top of the stack. Now we've made that small adjustment to our curves layer. And as a final trick, what we're going to do is apply a narrow vignette around the outside of the image. This just helps to focus attention on the central parts of the picture. So we get our freehand lasso, and we're just going to draw a wibbly wobbly line, just avoiding the detailed parts of the image. Take that around the outside. Something like that should do nicely. There we go. We're going to feather that selection. Select and feather. And then again, a feather radius about 150 is absolutely fine. Click OK. And before you create the curves adjustment layer about this, what we have to bear in mind is we've made a selection of the central part of the image. And what we want is the outside part. So we want to select the bit that's currently not selected. That's really easy to do. Just hit Control, Shift and I on the keyboard. Or if you can't remember that, go to Select and choose Inverse. And that will make sure that the outside part of the picture is selected. Once that's done, you can now create your curves adjustment layer. There we go. And then pull the curve down just to darken that outer edge of the image. That's a bit too much. Just a subtle adjustment is all that's needed. Yeah, that looks pretty good there. We'll click OK to that, and the job's a good one. Now, if you want to change any of your adjustment layers, you can. As I say, you could have named them all. We could call this Quayside. This could be Sky 1. This one could be Sky 2. You can name them all so you know exactly where you are. But it is quite easy just to look at the masks attached to the curves adjustments, and then you can see what part of the image is being affected. So you don't have to spend time naming them if you don't want to. But what I might do here is just drop back in to the colour balance, the original colour balance, and have another look at that, because I'm not sure it's quite right. It's looking a little bit red, so we'll drop into our red channel and just maybe just reduce that a little bit. You know, something like there should be good. And then have a look at the yellow, because that could do with, yeah, that needs a little bit more. So I'm just pulling down the blue a touch more to add some more yellow to the image. That looks great there. Click OK to that. adjust away, fine tune, and a great way to do it actually is to save this whole lot as a PSD file, because if you do that you'll keep all your adjustment layers intact, and then come back to it in a day or so and have another look at the image. Because sometimes when you leave a gap between one part of image making and another part, you actually make some different decisions and you're a bit more objective in the choices you make. So there we go, that's how you can use curves and turn something rather flat and dull like this into something a bit more special. And of course, a layers palette like that is really going to impress your friends. Thanks very much for listening. See you next time.